Thanks for joining us today. This is Laura Handke, Lake Oswego's transformational voice teacher, and I am here today with Jeremy Okai Davis, who is one of my favorite artists. And he also painted a painting for me called Muriel. And that is another story for another time. I will make sure and show images of this beautiful painting and some of Jeremy's other wonderful work. Um, but I want to start with just giving a brief introduction of Jeremy, who lives right here in the Portland area. He has since 2007. Jeremy was born and raised, is that correct? Born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. And his
Yep.
work now has kind of evolved into portraiture work. But what I would really like to do, Jeremy, is I would like, first of all, to tell people about this wonderful interview that you had done with Kevin Kirkwood. And this was how many months ago did you say this?
I think we got together in December of 2024, so just a few months ago.
So December. So this is a real nice recent interview, and this podcast is called, I'm looking at my notes here, it's called Strand, Portrait of an Artist, and this is episode 51. And I'll put the link in the blog so that people can check that out. But I love that interview that you did with Kevin, and he gives a really nice background of your history as an artist. But before we get into how we met, you and I, is there just a little more that you'd like to say about your background as an artist?
Background wise, I mean, you mentioned I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been an artist, I like to say, my whole life. Like the official title people say comes after you make your first sale and you start to um, fund your life as an artist or have a little bit of monetary success. But I like to think that creatively, I've always had an artistic mind. So I call myself an artist since like I was a child because I was always drawing. So yeah, been an artist my whole life from Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, that's really it. Yeah, that's the background. I've just progressed myself as an artist and tried to live an artist life. So
I love it. I love it. You own yourself as an artist. And that's
yeah,
not easy for everybody to do. And not only are you selling your paintings, but it is part of your identity. And you call yourself that. And I love that because we'll get into this a little bit more later. But one thing that it's, what do you call it? A rumor, an urban myth, actual reality? Who knows? But the truth is, a lot of people think it's really hard to earn a living in the arts.
it's not a myth. I mean, it is
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, yeah.
it is. It is. At least in this culture that you and I happen to have been raised in the United States of
Hmm.
America. You know, there's other people in other countries where maybe it's not quite as challenging, but here it is.
Yes.
So we'll talk about what that means to be an artist and even how to market your work a little bit later on. But for now, let's go ahead and delve right into how we met, which was right around a year ago, were our performances. But it was back in September or October of last year when Chapel
Hmm.
Theater was doing its annual Winter Play Festival. And just for my listeners who may not know about this, um, Chapel Theater does this wonderful thing every single year, at least they have for the last, I think, 5 years in a row, except
5 years. Yeah.
maybe one, yeah, where it's a whole bunch of short plays, 10 minutes approximately each, and they bring together new works from Portland writers and they throw it out there. They get directors, they get actors, and people are put together and they're cast and they rehearse and they put on a show and they have no idea what they're putting their hat in the ring for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Exactly.
we don't know, what project we're going to end up being assigned to or who we're going to be working with, which is really an interesting concept right there. But you and I personally think we had a great experience. At least I did with you, me,
Oh
and
no, I did.
Cecilia.
Uh-huh.
Great. So I was a first time director. You were a first time actor. Cecilia had acted before. And let's just kind of say here the play's name was Danny and Rose, and it was written by
Hmm.
Michael Kurt. We had the opportunity to meet Michael, and the whole thing was just great. But so let's just start instead of talking about art, which theater is art in many ways. But what was that experience like for you? What were the challenges? What was fun?
It was a great experience for me. Definitely a little nerve-wracking getting into it, but I tried to enter the whole project with an open mind, not having acted on stage before. I've done some like little things here and there, like behind the camera. I've done these type of interviews before, so there was a little bit of that. But as far as like putting on a completely different character and on the spot performing in front of people, that was the first time doing that. So I was definitely a little bit nervous to get into
Uh-huh.
it, but I will say that you and Cecilia made me a lot more comfortable from the start, like from the first rehearsal that we had. I think there was a natural kind of chemistry and comfort that we all had. So it was definitely a lot easier with that. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun for me to like challenge myself in that way. And I've always just in general attempted to, I wouldn't say always, but like embraced discomfort a lot of times and try to put myself in uncomfortable situations to see how I respond and see if I can get new information about myself and new ways to kind of engage in life. So that definitely gave me that opportunity. And to tie it to the arts, I mean, obviously, like you said, theater is art, but
Yeah.
I was in the midst of thinking about a new body of work that was tied to the history of African Americans in performance and theater. And in a lot of ways, I thought that I needed to kind of put myself in that world to see if I could get some information about like what it is to perform and to put on a different character. So that was part of the thinking with me being in that play, but it was also just something I wanted to try. I wanted to act and see if I could do it for a long time. So my connection to the Chapel Theater is Ilya and Corinne that run it.
It
I
was,
know
yeah.
them, and I know my children are the same age as their children, so um, they go to daycare together. So I knew about the play or the theater, and the opportunity came up through a conversation with Ilya, and I jumped on it. I figured felt like um, it was being presented to me. I had to say yes. I had to give it a shot at least. So
I love it. I love it that you said I had to, which is like it was something in your soul that said say yes, right? It's like
absolutely, yeah.
say yes to this opportunity. So what not a twofold question here. Number one, what did you learn about yourself through that process? And number two, did you learn anything from the process that you could take and translate to the performers that you were painting?
Um, what did I learn for myself? Well, I learned that I can do it. I think there was a fear that I would say a fear. I don't not a fear. It's hard to say a fear because I'm a confident person. Like I feel like I can achieve like what I put my heart into. Um, but I guess I hadn't put myself in that new of a situation in a long time. Um, so I guess the information that I got for myself is that I can do it. You know, that I can step outside of the box when I need to, and try new things. Um, and as far as what I learned for the paintings, I wouldn't say there was anything specific that I
Mhm.
learned about performing. Um, but I will say that I wanted to put myself in their shoes, just in a sense of um, not being a phony in a way, you know, like not attacking a subject matter that I didn't have context behind, personal context or personal interests behind. So just put myself in that situation just for a brief time, even I think just gave me a little bit more confidence in approaching the paintings and working on the paintings.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, because it's scary. I mean, the number one fear of most people is actually public speaking, believe it or not. And that's just getting up in front of an audience. And I don't mean just, I've given a lot of speeches and it is nerve wracking. And to give a good speech requires an enormous amount of preparation and
mhm,
connection with yourself. And, this whole list of things goes on and on. People teach people how to give speeches. That, I mean, one of my voice students is a speaker coach. That
mhm,
is a job that people have. There's that much involved. But as an actor, that's a whole different thing. And
Yeah,
I
100%.
can tell you, I mean, I literally, and I don't know if I ever told you this at the time, Jeremy, but on opening night of Danny and Rose, and I was there, of course, um, I heard a woman whisper, "This is his first time on stage." And they were referring to you
Yeah.
because your presence, and believe it or not, I mean, your skill, you had skill going in. And what that is, it's an ability to feel something and let your audience know that you're feeling something. Because I think you just used the words fake it or something. Like I didn't want to just, what was it
Be a
you said?
phony. Yeah,
Be a
phony.
phony. Yeah. I don't want
Yeah.
to be a phony. I want to be real about this. Well, how to be real about acting, and people don't get this until you try it yourself, is that if you're up there not feeling anything, your audience isn't going to believe you. They're not going to
Hmm.
get it either, you know. But if you're putting yourself in this situation as if it was real, and you're having the emotions that you would have, your audience is going to believe it. And you were a natural. I don't say that to just anybody. I mean, I've only taught 2 acting classes before, and I was the first time director. So, you know, this is not my big thing I do in the world, but you are a natural. And so that's my next question is, are you going to do it again?
I think so. I would like to do it more. I'd like to do a little bit more long form, like an actual performance, like a full on performance. But the one thing that I did, and I knew this going into it, that it takes a lot of work, a lot of time to like invest yourself in the characters, create that continuity with your co-star. Me and Cecilia worked really hard. Like I think like meeting with you, and obviously we had the snowstorm last
Yeah.
year that kind of interfered with some of the
Yes, it did.
rehearsals that we had. We would get on Zoom and rehearse like every couple days, and then I went up to her place, and so we worked really hard to like get that chemistry and comfort together. And I think that it came across in our performance. Um, but it took that amount of time. So I think in knowing how much dedication and time it takes, it'd have to be the right thing. And I'd have to clear out my schedule to actually give it what it deserves.
Yes.
So, and with my life and with the art, that's always going to be first, as far as career wise, my family, my art. Um, so trying to find a new passion or something else to spend that much time, it'd have to be the right project, and I'd have to clear out a chunk of time to do it. But I would love to give it a shot again. I do every so often look at the calls for plays just to see if there's something that pops up. So yeah, I definitely will do it again in some regards. It's just depends on the time and when I can find the time.
Right. And understood, you know, absolutely agreed. It's a huge commitment. And because when you make that commitment, you have your cast members and your director and everybody else that's involved in the show. Now, I think we were all really lucky. It's like you said, the chemistry was, it just was there. And you two were absolutely dedicated and did everything you needed to do to make this a believable and enjoyable performance for the audience. And you did that. So I look forward to seeing you again in the future, but I completely understand there's only so much time in the day, and you got your priorities straight, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
So let's move away from acting and move back into other forms of art, such as painting. And I want to kind of preface this by going back to that interview, that podcast interview with Kevin Kirkwood. Again, it's Portrait of an Artist, episode 51, because he talks a lot about your background as a painter. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk more about what it means to be a painter and how you approach your art, because of some certain phrases and words and things that came up in that interview with Kevin. So that's why I keep pointing back to that, listeners. There's stuff in there that's really good. So we're going to delve into that just a little bit more. And I want to kind of preface that by talking about my niece a little bit, because I have 2 nieces. I come from a small family. My brother just has 2 daughters. They're my kids. I don't have kids of my own. So my nieces are my kids. And the youngest one is one of those that just had a natural proclivity towards drawing and painting and is a spectacular artist in a lot of people's opinions, but has always made it very clear upon entering college, this is my hobby. Art is just
Mm.
my hobby. I'm going to go to school. And that's how I was raised. And that's so I guess that's probably how we raise our children, because that's how we were raised, was okay, go to school, get a job, get married, have kids, and this is your life progression, and your job is going to be after you get your schooling and blah blah blah. Well, you use words in this podcast that were a little different than that. You never use the word hobby, for one, about your artwork. You call yourself an artist. It's not a hobby. You're an artist. There's power in that, right? But you and Kevin used words like deep well. I love that. Deep well. Where you go for inspiration, whatever. Tell me about this. What does that mean to call yourself an artist, to make your life around art, as opposed to saying it's a hobby, and
Yeah.
understanding you have a deep well you can go to for inspiration? Just grab what I'm saying. This isn't a specific question, and go with
Uh-huh.
it. Let's see what comes out of
Well,
your mouth.
yeah, I'm trying to think. So, the deep well, I think I learned that. Well, to go back, I mentioned earlier that I've always considered myself an artist. Um, I've had other passions in my life. Sports was a big passion when I was a child, when I was younger. I played
Basketball.
basketball growing up. That was a really big part of my life. But even at that time, art was always there, kind of like parallel basketball. They kind of one kind of took the high like they kind of went back and forth a little bit with what I was dedicating my time to. But eventually, once I went to college, basketball kind of started to fade a little bit, my desire and my passion for it. And I had to find something else that meant that I thought that I could put my life into. Like even at that age, at 18, 19, when I was making that decision in college, I knew that I wanted to find something at that point that was going to fulfill me for a long time. And I knew from the time that I was a child that art was always the thing that brought me joy. Um, Even when I was just doing like making little doodles of like G.I. Joe characters in the 80s with my brother and Transformers, like it just brought me so much happiness. And then on in the middle school, I loved taking art classes. High school was my art teacher in high school, Mr. Somi, was transformative for me. So I remembered the feelings that I got when I like stepped inside of my art class were completely different than the feelings that I had going into any other class. So I knew from an early stage that art was a passion and it was deeply rooted in me. So when I had to decide career-wise in college what I'm going to do with my life, art was an easy decision. Like there was never like I never second guessed art. There was graphic design. Like I thought that maybe I would be a graphic designer, but it was always something creative. I knew that I was going to do something creative from late my mid-teens to like once I entered college. Um, so it's always been there. Like I've always thought of myself as a creative, as an artist. So I've never had really a difficulty in calling myself that. Um, I think it's fine to call yourself a hobbyist, a hobby artist. Like if
Yeah.
that's what that if that's what, how you feel, that's fine. Um, but there is a power in saying I am an artist. This is what I do. This is who I
Right.
am. Um, that was necessary for me to make it clear that this is something that I was going to put my everything into, and hopefully putting my everything into it was going to like cycle that back into my life. Um, so yeah, it's always been the art life for me since I was a child. Again, graphic design is my day job. I do have to be very clear, like I'm a full-time artist, but I'm also a full-time graphic designer because I work a
Yes.
40-hour a week job doing that. Um, I just do them both about equal. You know, it's funny, like I'm bouncing around. When I moved to Portland in 2007, um, I moved here for art. I moved here to be an artist and to progress my career. But I took a job pretty early on as a graphic designer for a little company, and they were in Wilsonville at the time. We moved around a little bit. We're based in Aurora now. Um, but when I took that job, I met with my boss and the other graphic designer there, and I told them from the start that I moved to Portland to be an artist. Like I'm here for my art. Like
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to be able to stick around here very long, but for now I need this job. I need to make a little bit of money to like help fund my life so that I could be an artist. And I'm still there. I'm still at that job. But um, I think making it clear to my boss from the start that I'm here for art. I might have to take some time off. I might have to like take a week off for an art show to get some work done. He was open to that from the start. So I was able to take that job and know that I could craft my art life around that job. And my boss has always been very open to that. Um, I'm kind of diverting away from the story a little bit, but I say that to say that from 2007, when I moved here, that was the start of me basically attempting to um, create a life that was filled with art, that I
Yeah.
was able to make the work that I wanted to make, spend as much time in the studio as I could, get to as many art shows as I could, um, just fill my life with art. And I'm losing the plot of the question, but I think I, as an artist, and sorry if you want to reset, we could reset. But I've
No,
just
I love
attempted
it.
to live the art life.
No, I think what you're
Yeah,
doing here, well, okay, number one, I didn't ask you a question. I said, take what I'm saying and roll with it, which
yeah,
is exactly what you did. But no, this is what you're doing, I think, Jeremy, is you're describing how you can take something because, and I wasn't, saying art being a hobby is a bad thing. That might have come across that way. That's not necessarily what I meant. Because for a lot of people, that's just in their nature. It's like, okay, so
yeah,
I'm going to be an attorney or a banker or whatever it is I'm going to be. But you know what? What really lights me up is coaching kids sports. So I'm going to do that
yeah.
every weekend and 3 nights a week after work. And so that's how certain people approach their lives because their work in the world, how they pay their bills, how they make their money isn't necessarily the same thing as who they are as a person. But there are those of us who are, because I'm going to go back again to the words that you used when you were talking about what art does for you and what that art class did for you in high school and what that teacher did for you. You
Mm-hmm.
used the words joy. You said when you walked into that room, you felt differently than you did in any other class. So we've got feelings, we've got joy, we've got happiness, we've got these words that art is what that did for you. And so you're
Yeah,
more of a person, I think, who your work in the world is a part of who you are, as opposed to that banker who coaches kids sports on the sides. And there's lots of people who fall into that category. But for
mm-hmm.
you, you knew you needed to say yes. Like you said yes to that first acting role because art, and somehow you had the confidence. So that's another key word is that you're a confident person. Now, let's go back to someone like me and then we'll move on to a little bit more about creativity, but I think we're getting to the gist of what I really wanted to talk about today, which is when your life is your art and your art is your
Mm-hmm.
work. And
Yeah,
it's a whole different way to approach life, right? And in order to do so, that confidence is so key. I was one of those people who started out in banking and insurance and doing my art and creativity on the side. You were smart enough to be a graphic designer, which is an artistic endeavor. Now I'm a voice teacher. And look how, because I love music. And so I can teach people how to speak and sing and combine that with writing about a young gal who loses her voice. And I write a whole book called How Abella Found Her Voice, you
mm-hmm.
know? So I can combine these two and they all segue together. You've been doing this for a lot longer.
Yeah,
You've had your life and your work in the world kind of dovetail and you've had that confidence. I wasn't planning to ask this question, but where do you think that confidence came from? I had to find it.
mm.
And I think it took longer for me to find it because I started a whole new career at 50. You've been doing art your whole life. Where do you think that confidence came from? What gave it to
You
you?
know, I mean, I think I would say my parents. First off, I think my parents instilled at an early age to, without even like explicitly saying it, follow your dreams, follow your passions,
Yeah.
do the things that make you happy. Um, I think obviously there's a lot of parents and families and children that feel like monetary success is what defines, or money is what defines success.
Yes.
My parents never explicitly said that. So I think
Okay.
from an early age, I knew that I wanted to do something that, um, again, brought me joy and fulfilled me.
Yes.
Um, my dad was a basketball coach. He could, and and he was a basketball player. And I saw him, um, the joy that he got from playing sports when he would go play pickup, or him bringing home his the stats from the game on a Friday night, like working through the stats and watching like videos of other coaches and how they approach practice. So I'm diverting to sports, but I saw my dad's passion for sports firsthand, um, and I saw him bringing that home, and it not feeling like work, but also feeling like just part of who he was. My dad was a basketball coach. My dad was a basketball person. So I think I early on, I had that too. I had that idea of being a basketball player. And I think I kind of, when I stopped playing basketball, I think I transitioned that passion into my art. The same kind of energy my dad was putting into being a basketball coach or a basketball player or living a basketball life. I kind of put that into myself as an artist. Um, so I'll say that's where I think fully inhabiting the art life and from an early stage is what gave me the confidence to like just progress in that way. One thing that came up when you're talking a second ago about confidence also, um, I'm a confident person. I'm a confident artist. Like I think that I'm a good artist. Um, but I think there's a certain amount of trying to think how to word this. Like I'm also very confident that I don't know a lot.
Yeah.
And I think the curiosity that I have in knowing more and putting that into the work
Yes.
um, is what keeps me moving and keeps me going as an artist. Um, there's so much that I can dig into. There's so much more that I need to know. And the art is what is the cipher for that. Like that's when I find things out or when I want to like um, inform myself or if I get curious about something, that's when the art comes in. Like I can use the art to like dig into a subject and transfer that into a piece of art that in turn kind of like educates myself, but it also serves as like an education for other people. And you mentioned the deep well.
Yeah.
The deeper your well, the deeper your well is, the longer you can dig and find more. So I think I try to keep my curiosity about the world, about topics as open as I can. Um, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what I think creates a long standing uh, art life is
Yeah.
to be very clear that you don't know everything. And there's so much more that you can know.
I agree with you. And something that just popped into my head, and it kind of leads to my last and final question of this interview, too. But as I was listening to you describe curiosity, because curiosity is one of my favorite words, too. I think insatiable curiosity is one of the best ways to make your life interesting. I mean, just in general, the
Hmm.
more curious you are about what else there is in the world, the more interesting and exciting your life is going to be. But I also feel like, as I'm listening to you say, I understand I don't know everything, that's a closed mind. I know everything there is to know. I'm the expert on this. I think that closes your mind.
Yeah.
And when you can say, what more can I learn? And how can that inform my art? How can that make this body of work? And let your curiosity, and I like to say, even a sense of wonder, like a sense of wonder about the world and
Hmm.
wonder and curiosity. Um, that that means an open mind. It means there's more. I don't know this. I can learn more. I can grow
Hmm.
more. I can be exposed to more. I can expose other
Yeah.
people to more. I can put this into my art. I can put that. Or for me, about the voice, maybe like a person's voice, bringing it out in the world. And so that can be my deep wells, or how does that relate to the voice? You know, yours can be in your artwork, but it's all part of the same beautiful mess or the
Yeah.
beautiful project or whatever you want to call it, right? It's
Yeah.
all part of the
Yeah.
same thing, but we're learning and growing. And that brings to mind kind of where we're at right now in this society.
Hmm.
Because there's a lot of tension in the country right now. There's a lot of scary stuff going on. There's all kinds of stuff out there. And we're in here dealing with what's out there, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I I'm trying to think how to word this. Let's put it this way. Okay, I did a speech once about millennials, and I was having a conversation just a few months ago about millennials. And there is a point, I am going to connect the dots here. But millennials, are you considered a millennial?
I don't think so. I think I'm right on
Okay,
the before that. I don't know the
okay.
dates.
So maybe
I'm
you're
born in '79. I think it was like early '80s that the millennials.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
yeah. So maybe not. You might be on the cusp. But a general kind of feeling when millennials first started kind of getting into the job place and the culture was kind of starting to change and blah 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 was millennials are selfish because they don't like to work, and they don't want to hold down a steady job, and all they want to do is maybe create art or be in a play, or millennials don't take life seriously. There was that kind
Yeah.
of mentality around them. And I was having a conversation with a woman whose child is a millennial, and I was telling her about this speech that I said, what we can learn from millennials. And she said,
Mm.
I'm so glad you did that speech because my son is a millennial. And what I have found is he loves to work. He wants to work. He wants to work in a job that is interesting to him. And he's not willing to put up with the bullshit that we put up with.
Yeah.
And I said, that's right. Because we put up with a lot. We put up with a
Yeah.
lot of, men, white men in charge, telling
Hmm.
the rest of us what to do and doing things that didn't feel good to our souls, that didn't feel right, that didn't make us happy, that didn't bring joy, that didn't bring contentment, but we did it because that's what we were told to do. So we put up with the bullshit. Well, there's a lot
Hmm.
of bullshit going on right now all over. I'm, seeing it on my news feed, blah, blah, blah. Well, how does art, why do art in the face of something like this? How does art heal? What brings you to do art when the world around you is boiling over?
Yeah.
Why do art? Answer that question for me. How does art help?
Oh, I mean, first and foremost, it helps me, like, just in a lot of ways, to escape that while I'm creating. I'm not necessarily thinking about the ills of the world. There's, like you mentioned, there's a joy that I get from actually creating art. Um, but I would say that was like an earlier mentality that I had. It still exists, but that was really what my mentality about art was earlier on, is escapism, complete escapism, making pretty pictures, making enjoyable pictures for others to look at. I still want to do that. Like, I still want to make, like, um, attractive images, but at the same time, I think there is. I use the word responsibility, for myself, not for any other creative. It's not a necessary thing, but for me, I feel there is a certain amount of responsibility to use art as, um, that escape from the ills of the world, but also, um, a way to reflect joy, reflect some of the positive things that have happened over the course of history, some of the things that during some of these like nasty times, these frustrating times, some of the shining lights that have been dimmed over the course of history, or some of the shining lights that we're not able to see because things are so dark. Um,
Yeah.
I'm trying to magnify those with the work. I'm trying to not be ignorant to the negative stuff, the bullshit that's happening, but I want to make sure that there's a clear understanding that there are positive things still happening. There were positive things that were happening in the 50s and 60s and 70s. There were beautiful things
Yes.
that were happening that maybe got dimmed or overshadowed. And with my art at this point, I'm trying to bring those things to light. And again, that comes back to the curiosity that I have and the curiosity that I think a lot of people have. Like, I want to use my curiosity, and like I'm clear that my curiosity is not in a vacuum. Like, the curiosity that I have is a curiosity that a lot of people share. And when I have that curiosity, I feel a responsibility to share that curiosity, share the information that I get from that with other people to help inform. Um, and I've received feedback from people at the shows that I've had that that is an accurate assessment. Um, so when I talk with people at my shows, when I talk with people that have received my work, commissioned my work like you have, um, it's clear that the work that I'm doing is helpful and is a benefit. So that feedback that I get is what keeps me going, um, lets me know that it's necessary in these times, that
Yeah.
I'm necessary, that artists are necessary.
Yes.
So yeah, art is what heals. Art is what informs. Um, and it's yeah, art is 100% necessary, and I'm more than happy to be one of those people that facilitates that necessity.
I'm glad you are. My living room where my painting is hanging is glad that you are. And I want to wrap up by emphasizing that what you just said is you're putting a spotlight on, or you're focusing your energy on something that builds people up, that makes people feel good, that
Mm-hmm.
maybe it can be a history lesson. Who's in that painting? You know, Muriel Smith. How many people know who Muriel Smith was? Well, I didn't
Yeah.
until you painted her for me. So,
And I didn't either. That's the thing. I didn't know who she was until I started doing this research that I for the show that so she appeared in a few paintings that I had in 2020, I think it was. And in doing my research, I found out about her. And just being a black man that didn't know about this like amazing performer, singer that did all these incredible things, I felt the need, the urge to share that with everyone. So
yes,
that's why I did the painting in the first place. And now, in my ignorance about not knowing her, I did the painting. Then we talk, and I get to spread that knowledge and that to you. And everybody that comes into your home is also gonna, I don't know, it's just like it feels good to be that person that's able to um, further the stories, further Black
yeah,
stories, further stories in general.
yeah, you get to spotlight somebody like Muriel Smith. So now I know about her, you know about her. I'm gonna write this blog, and whoever reads the blog is gonna know about her. But not only that,
Exactly.
but in the process of the creation of the painting itself, you were engaged in something that increased your energy vibration, which as a result
Exactly.
is going to increase the vibration of people around you and those who look at it. And so it's a snowball effect. And
It's all of it.
Howard
Yeah.
Howard Thurman said a quote that I'm not going to remember, and I'm going to mess it up badly, but I remember the end part of it was, what the world needs is more people who have come alive. Something like
Mm.
that. So find out what makes you come alive and then go do that.
Yes.
Whoever Howard Thurman was, now I want to research him. That was his advice. Find out what makes you come alive and then go do that. And you're doing that. I'm doing that. Let's hope everybody who reads this and looks at the Muriel painting will all start doing that.
Exactly.
We can
Yeah.
all come alive and we can shine through these dark times. So thank
Exactly.
you for joining me and for encouraging people to shine their own light and to come
Yeah.
alive,
My pleasure.
because that's
My
what we're
pleasure.
here
Thanks for
for.
having me.
You're welcome. And really quickly, where can people find out about you the best? And how can they find out about your work, buy your work, and learn more about you?
The easiest way to see my work, there's two places. So I have Instagram.
Hmm.
If you look up, I think it's Jeremy Okai Art at
Okay.
Jeremy Okai Art on Instagram. Um, and then I work with Elizabeth Leach Gallery. So if you look up elizabethleach.com, you can find a list of all their artists, and I'm one of those artists. So you can click on my name and see the most recent work that I'm creating. And they have you can see when I have shows. I have a show every couple years, but there's other things happening all the time. The Instagram will be the best place to keep
Excellent.
track of when shows pop up and new work is happening.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Thank you all for joining us today, and I'll be back with another blog really soon.